Hello students, welcome to the online classes. I am your English teacher, Mr. Arup. I will be teaching you English literature. You know that we have already completed two stories, The Fun They Had and The Sound of Music. Today we will take up the third story, that is The Little Girl by Catherine Mansfield. Students, before we go to the story, let us recall some of the elements of a story. These are setting, character, plot, conflict, theme, narration, tone, style, moral, and above all, the title of the story. Students, if you remember, setting of a story is a background based on which the story is written. It may refer to a particular time or a particular society. Characters are the persons inside the society of the story. In other words, the story has also got a society in itself, and the persons inside that particular society are the characters. Plot is the framework of the story. Conflict contains actions inside the story. Theme is the subject matter of the story. Narration is the storytelling. The narration can be in first person or in third person. If the story is narrated or told by a character from inside the story with the pronoun I, it is in first person. And if the story is told by the writer with descriptions of different actions and characters of the story, it is in third person. Tone of a story tells us whether it is a sad story or a happy story or tragedy or comedy or tragicomedy. Language refers to as style. In other words, style means the language used by the writer. The moral of a story is the lesson that we get after reading the story. The title is important. Title often introduces the story. In other words, title may be the introduction to the story. The setting of the story, The Little Girl, is a common one. It is about two families, one residing next to the other. The main characters of the story are Kezia, a little girl, and her parents and her grandmother. There are some other minor characters in the story. These are the McDonald's family and their children. Students, as we go through the story, we will get to learn about other aspects of the story. Students, I will be reading out the paragraphs followed by explanation. The Little Girl. Before you read, do you feel you know your parents better now than when you were much younger? Perhaps you now understand them and the reasons for some of their actions that used to upset you earlier. Explanation. Students, this is the first point that has been given before you read the story. Here, there is a general question which is subjective. That means your answers may be different to this question. However, one general thing can be established here, that when children are young, they understand their parents little, but as they grow up, they understand them better. Students, let me read the second point. This story is about a little girl whose feelings for her father change from fear to understanding, will probably find an echo in every home. Explanation. In the second point, it is given that the story is about a little girl. As I told you, the name of the girl is Kezia. She feared her father very much, but slowly and steadily she understood that she did not have to fear her father that much. She started understanding her father, his love, and his care for her. Now, students, I will read out the first paragraph of the story. To the little girl, he was a figure to be feared and avoided. Every morning, before going to work, he came into her room and gave her a casual kiss, to which she responded with, "Goodbye, father." And oh, there was a glad sense of relief when she heard the noise of the carriage growing fainter and fainter down the long road. Explanation. In the first paragraph, we are introduced with the little girl, that is Kezia. Kezia used to fear her father very much and tried her best to avoid him. Every morning before going to his work, her father used to enter her room and kiss her. And she also responded to his kiss by saying, "Goodbye, father." Students, here we find that the father was very casual in kissing her. It seemed as if there was lack of love and feelings. It was as if his duty to kiss her and go for work. But Kezia became very happy because she knew that her father was going away for the day from her. When the sound of the carriage of her father became fainter and fainter, Kezia was filled with a glad sense of relief that her father was gone. So, students, we have come to the end of the first paragraph. Now, let me read the second paragraph. In the evening, when he came home, she stood near the staircase and heard his loud voice in the hall. "Bring me my tea into the drawing room." "Hasn't the paper come yet, mother?" "Go and see if my paper's out there, and bring me my slippers." Explanation. Students, in the first paragraph, it was a morning scene. And in the second paragraph, we find an evening scene when Cassius' father returns from his work. As Kezia used to hear the loud voice of her father, fear returned to her. She would hear her father telling her grandmother to bring his tea into his room. Then he would inquire about the newspaper. Then he would tell to bring his slippers. So, students, we find that when the father of Kezia returned from his work, he used to be a very tired one and he would like to have the things he wanted that time. But the important thing here to notice is that the return of the father once again filled Kezia with fear for him. The next paragraph. Kezia, mother would call to her, if you were a good girl, you can come down and take off father's boots. Slowly the girl would slip down the stairs, more slowly still across the hall, and push open the drawing door. Students, in this paragraph, there is the entry of Kezia's mother. Her mother would call her and put a condition before her. She would say, if she was a good girl, she should come down and take off the boots of the father. Students, here we find that it is very unusual that a mother tells her daughter to take off the boots of her father, but there might be some reasons behind that. We would get to know about all these things as we go on through this story. Now, Kezia is frightened and slowly comes down. You would find here a change of attitude in Kezia after a whole day of happiness. She would slowly cross the hall and would get into the drawing room. She knew that she had to do what her mother had told her. So here we come to the end of this paragraph. The next paragraph. By that time, he had his spectacles on and looked at over them in a way that was terrifying to the little girl. Well, Kezia, hurry up and pull off these boots and take them outside. Have you been a good girl today? I don't know, father. You don't know? If you slutter like that, mother will have to take you to the doctor. Explanation. Students, we must get to know that Kezia is by now very fear-stricken. She is more frightened by the look of his father. By now, the father would take up a mood, putting on his spectacles and looking over them. This sight frightened little Kezia, but we must know that that was the usual behavior of the father. The father would ask Kezia then about her day, if it went all right. He would ask her if she had been a good girl throughout the day. To this question, Kezia stammers. Stammers, do you know the meaning of stammer? She is unable to speak properly. She would say that she did not know if she had been a good girl throughout the day. The father would repeat her stammering and bring to the notice of the mother it. He would frighten Kezia more by saying that if she would continue stammering like that, she would have to be taken to a doctor for treatment. This filled Kezia with more fear. The next paragraph. She never stuttered with other people, had quite given it up, but only with father, because then she was trying so hard to say the words properly. Students, this is a paragraph where we find the remarks of the writer. The writer says that Kezia never stammered with other people. She found it very difficult to speak properly before her father. Fear for her father stopped her from saying whatever she wanted properly. Next paragraph. What's the matter? What are you looking so wretched about? Mother, I wish you taught this child not to appear on the brink of suicide. Here, Kezia, carry my teacup back to the table carefully. Explanation. Students, here in this paragraph we find a very harsh reaction from the father. The father is worried about the behavior of Kezia. He was unhappy about Kezia. He would ask her why she looked so unhappy and sad. Then he would blame Kezia's mother for Kezia's behavior. In fact, he told Kezia's mother that she had brought this little girl on the brink of suicide. In other words, he blamed Kezia's mother for the fear in her for him. Then the father would, in a rough manner, tell Kezia to bring his teacup back to his table, but carefully. Next paragraph. He was so big, his hands and his neck, especially his mouth when he yawned. Thinking about alone was like thinking about a giant. Explanation. Students, again we find the interference of the writer. The writer remarks about Kezia's father from the point of view of Kezia. The writer says that for Kezia, her father was very big, his hands were big, his neck was very big, and particularly his mouth. If she would think him a giant, it was not wrong, and it made her think so when she would think about her father alone. Students, we must understand one thing here very clearly, that Kezia was a little girl and her father an elderly person. So he was also physically a big one. And Kezia's fear for him made him look like a giant. Next paragraph. On Sunday afternoons, grandmother sent her down to the drawing room to have a nice talk with father and mother. But the little girl always found mother reading and father stretched out on the sofa, his handkerchief on his face, his feet on one of the best cushions, sleeping soundly and snoring. She sat on a stool, gravely watched him until he woke up and stretched, and asked the time, then looked at her. Don't stare so, Kezia. You look like a little brown owl. Explanation. Students, again we find the remarks of the writer here. The writer tells that on every Sunday, the grandmother would tell Kezia to go downstairs and have some time with her parents. The grandmother felt that Kezia should have much time with her parents. Kezia also used to obey her. She would go down to the drawing room and thought to have some time with her parents. But as she entered the drawing room, she would find a different picture. She could see her father sleeping on the sofa, snoring, and her mother would be busy reading magazines. She would very silently sit on the stool and started watching her father. When her father would wake up, she would try to talk, but she was wrong. When her father woke up, he asked Kezia about the time, and told her not to stare at him in that manner. He would more or less turn to a fearing father. He remarked that she looked like a brown owl. With this remark, Kaja is again filled with fear for her father. She won't be able to have good time with her parents for that day. So students, that is the end of this paragraph. For today, let it be this much only. I will provide you with a writing of whatever we have learned today. Thank you, students.